Hello again, everybody. Scott Casper, Takedown Media. We continue our coverage of the sport. This time we stop in Western PA. Recently, Bleacher Report did a video presentation on a young man, a very inspirational athlete indeed, who's coached by Joe Montalbano. And the club that he is at is it's a growing club in both Pittsburgh and then another suburb, what is it, Joe? Is it about 30 minutes away or so?
Yeah, 30, 40 minutes from outside the city.
So another 40 minutes. But I'll tell you what, he joins us now to talk about this wonderful story of Max Lamb and of his rather growing club, OMP Wrestling. Joe, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Scott?
I'm good, buddy. Thanks for taking the time. OMP Wrestling, let's start there. A couple years old, and it's experiencing some great growth. A lot of wrestling in Western PA and a lot of successful clubs. How did OMP start?
My partner, Mike Heinel, he runs the location, which is right on the edge of the city, actually in the hometown of Troy Letters, who's NCAA champ from Lehigh, former coach at Clary at this point. It's right out of that area. Mike and I are partnered up, and he's been on a club level for a good solid 6 years now. And he and I had gotten together in 2 years, had launched OMP with two separate locations. His being down at right inside Pittsburgh area, and then mine up north. And mine was in a venture with another former wrestler. It's the owner of a physical therapy practice, Revolution Physical Therapy, and the owner of the clinic is Leniel Mitchell. He was a two-time All-American from Gannon, but in the midst of wanting to be able to build and expand a sports training and physical therapy practice, wanted to offer wrestling within the clinic. And I'd known him when he was in high school, followed his college career, and he had come to me and said, he wanted to be able to find a way to work in conjunction with the club, and all along, working with him on being able to get it off the ground. So together with all of these guys, we got OMP started about 2 years ago, and it's been going great.
OMP, of course, stands for One More Period. You can check them out online, folks, at ompwrestling.com. We got hooked up with you in large part because of this wonderful story on Bleacher Report. Some would say that it's a sad story. I disagree. I think it's a very inspirational story about a 13-year-old boy who happens to be blind, who happens to see himself not necessarily having a disability, but perhaps just another challenge. How would you describe 13-year-old Max Lamb?
When I got a chance to be able to meet him for the first time, I was at an event. I was there actually coaching. It was only a few wrestlers there from our club. It was a good distance from where we were out in the middle of central Pennsylvania. And I had taken my son to that tournament, and another kid from our club had actually, we'd run into them out there, didn't even know they were there, and I coached him a bit in the event. And then they said, the dad had told me, he said, there's another wrestler who is from our community program who's interested in also coming to the club. I'd like you to meet him. I do want to let you know he is 100% blind. To come down and meet him and his dad. His dad just, not sure if he's going to be able to handle this kind of, high intense environment with a club. And, I wanted to go down and not knowing, what Max's level might be, and, if he'd be able to handle the competitiveness of it. And he went out and just raw, aggressive, effort. He ended up sticking the kid in the cradle in the first period and pinning him. And I got to realize, turned to dad, I said, he'll do just fine. He can hold his own. He's rugged. He's got raw ability. He's been helped with, getting him some fundamentals under his belt. But, he really has a desire to want to get better. And once coming in the room and getting comfortable and realizing how much help everybody has been with him, and he takes every direction. He's you never know he's in the room unless you actually put a spotlight on him to bring it to the attention of people, because when you watch him wrestle, he doesn't wrestle like it, and being able to just continue to help refine his technique and to know that he was comfortable being able to come in that room, because a lot of environments, if they're some club environments, he might be drowned out, where they may not be able to give him the time and attention, and he's really feels at home when he comes. Mike and I both have a pleasure getting a chance to work with him.
I think that's important to note that OMP is a welcoming environment. You've done a great job of welcoming families, dads, moms, and the kids, of course. But some clubs are completely different. Yours, I've witnessed it both in the Bleacher Report and everything I've done as far as my research on One More Period Wrestling. And I think that may come from your teaching background as a teacher and a coach, but you're obviously somebody who cares.
Yeah, Mike and I both we've had a lot of good high level wrestlers come in. You know, got NCAA champs. We just had Quentin Wright in, and and Troy Letters and Jake Herbert, Ed Ruth. We've had a lot of top notch guys come in, and it's being able to help give these kids a bigger picture. A lot of kids, especially, and we have a strong youth base, get really caught up in the here and now, and being able to have them have the bigger picture, not only of having them wrestle down the line and have a successful high school career, but for college, being able to have the bigger picture of it all. And Quentin was fantastic this past weekend, really coming from his standpoint. We want to be able to make sure those kids, we push them, we want to be able to help develop them, but it's for the long-term growth. It's not just for the here and now results.
You know that Quentin Wright is some kind of kid, isn't he? I mean, that's a one of those rare kids that is just a step above. You know what I mean? He's
total package.
Yeah. It's not even about performance. It's about being a human being, even though he's been faced with challenges. Yep. The doctor, the family optometrist, Dr. Chris Carver, has described Max's blindness as retinoblastoma, which is a rare form of eye cancer. And this young man, when he was little, had a little bit of sight, and then he started gradually losing it. He was treated, and it was described by his father in the Bleacher Report video as being something that nobody should have to go through, let alone a little guy. He came through it perhaps even a little bit tougher. Would you say that translated well into his wrestling skills?
I didn't really know that whole full story until actually watching the video. When I'd heard, and he just gave me just a general feel of the fact that he said he wasn't blind initially when he first got exposed to wrestling, and then they knew it had started to continue to fade, and to where he's at now, and I didn't realize, I just thought it was a regressive trait. I really didn't understand that it was cancer and what they were dealing with. So to know that the adversities he'd overcome, and to know that he just made his mind up of this is something that he wanted to get better at and continue to, improve at regardless of his challenges, was extremely admirable. He's motivated a lot of kids around him. We're getting emails through the system for basically fan mail for him of people that want to just reach out to him, and other interviews and things to be able to. And he's such a humble kid. He actually wasn't even enthusiastic to find out that the Bleacher Report was doing it. He said, "Why me? What do they want?" He really doesn't do, and he really doesn't want to draw attention to himself all that much. In practice, I'll do it to call the other kids out and say, if he can follow instructions on the first time told to him, what's your excuse?
Right. You have full senses. What's your excuse? His guide dog Seal, I understand, cannot attend competitions. Why is that?
That was an interesting story to hear that. But the fact that he's so protective of Max, to know that he can't expose him to that environment, because knowing obviously if he's in competition, how the dog may react to that, and they just don't want to have that occur. So, kind of a unique relationship with him and the dog.
Very, very. I think Max described them as best friends, and I think, boy, a service dog is a service dog, but Seal seems to be again a step above. We're talking with Coach Joe Montalbano, One More Period Wrestling Club in Western PA. There's the location right outside of Pittsburgh, and then of course the one where you'll find Joe primarily. And Joe, what town is that located in?
Cranberry Township.
That's the Cranberry location. So the other one's called the Factory, and this is the Cranberry location?
Factory is, we gave nicknames to both locations. Mine we called the Factory because, and I'll give credit to my partner Mike Heinel, his son Austin, who's a freshman in college right now at Penn State. He when he was there, we were trying to come up for Mike's was easy because his is in the basement, so it was the underground, and it's got that underground feel. It's awesome. Beams spread out across the entire gym, padded, and then the factory based on it being in that physical therapy clinic and strength and a lot of balance and a lot of state of the art training equipment. And factory was kind of a good feel for it, so that's why we nicknamed them.
Well, you and Mike obviously have a good idea of what a talented wrestler looks like, especially at 13. Can you project out what Max? I mean, he had a 10-1 record on the season last year, and he dominated his weight class in the summer tournament, the regional summer tournament. Managed to win his school's geography bee along the way. Can you describe what his future looks like in this sport? Should he choose to continue?
The positive, again, he has so much of an upside to him because he's pretty new to the club scene as far as being able to really start to experience that higher level exposure. But that event that the documentary was filmed at was a pretty good competitive summer event, and the kid's still wrestling in August because that's when that was filmed. You're obviously talking fairly competitive kids, and the only loss he took in that event was to a Virginia State champ that came in town, and he only lost to him 6-4. So knowing that he can hold with what raw exposure he's gotten at this point and what he's got at this point in his experience, he continues doing what he's doing. I believe he can be competitive, on a high level. It's all up to him on what kind of time and commitment he's willing to give. But he has the desire. He shows all the signs. So I would be willing to say, and he continues to inspire people when they watch him at this point. And he's just barely touching the tip of the iceberg on the kind of technique that he'll continue to get exposed to. That'll continue to make him a better wrestler.
His opponents describe him as being very strong.
Yeah, they do, because they'll underestimate him, and every time, and I'll look how he goes with some of the tougher kids, and they'll look back, and I'll see them, where they may have expected it to be a little bit more of a man, because he's kind of a long and lean build.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they've tied up with him, and they'll have trouble finishing, and as soon as it seems like it's going to be there, and then all of a sudden he ends up countering or just fighting his way out of it, and they'll turn off. Man, he's strong. He doesn't look that strong. He's strong. So.
And then you know what? If you can, here's my question, and for some folks they may not understand how a blind wrestler competes with a sighted wrestler, but tell our folks what difference there is in a match that involves a blind wrestler. What's the setup and what's the continuation? What must happen?
They have to maintain contact throughout action. If there's ever a break in physical contact, then the referee is to stop the match. I had seen this. There's a school for the blind down in Pittsburgh. When I was growing up, we had wrestled them, and it was it was a school for the deaf, but they had blind wrestlers on the team as well. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. Was early on in high school. And whether it's just their hands, forehead to forehead, there has to be some physical contact. But if they ever break loose, then immediately the action has to be stopped. And I'd coached them all through the season, and never did that ever become a factor. And nobody had ever broken off. And then that documentary, that it was in the middle of that one match, and the kid broke loose, which is common, in wrestling, to break loose and go from the open. And referee automatically had to stop the action.
So. And in the hands, one hand is facing down, one hand is facing up. Is that true?
No, they don't. There's no required. He just sticks out. I mean, it could be either way. I've seen that, but he'll start in just forehead to forehead with one hand, or with both hands making contact. But I've seen that where that is where the kids are used to having that be the contact. So it's a kind of a 50-50 share with one hand up and one hand down. I've seen that, but none of the referees I ever saw held him to that.
If you were to describe his style, is he hard charging? Is he, phase forward all the time? How would you describe Max's style?
He's a defensive style wrestler more so at this point because of, his comfort level of being able to go offensive from his feet. He uses his length to his advantage on top. He likes cradling, continuing to help, fine tune, his positioning on it. But those are his strengths, his tendencies. that he likes to do that work to his advantage. We look for offense, for him on his feet. That'll be things that he can be able to take advantage of, given his situation.
We're talking with Coach Joe Montalbano. One more period, Western Pennsylvania. He's at the Cranberry location. They call it the Factory, and the other, of course, in the outskirts of Pittsburgh. And it's a growing concern. Folks, they have some openings and availabilities. You've, of course, got to be willing to do what they want you to do, and that is to compete at the highest level. OMP, you're a teacher. Teaching what in particular?
High school math.
High school math, of course.
Yeah.
My greatest course.
Yeah.
Why was I always the challenger one mathematically speaking?
Yeah, it's like reading a different language to some people, and then once you all of a sudden you see it. I just find it to be such a common discipline like wrestling, because habits that people sometimes, like whether it's developing a high crotch or stand up, their habits and procedures and tactics and little secrets to be able to get the hang of it. And then once you start seeing it, then it starts to be able to flow a lot easier.
So you guys put together teams, then you go out and compete with other clubs and whatnot. What are some of the tournaments, some of the events you guys compete in?
No, we obviously, with a lot of the open tournaments, kids that just compete as individuals, and we'll still go train and go coach them. Some of the team events we've done. We do the NHSCA national duels in Virginia Beach. We take a team down to there. We're going to Wildwood this year with teams in Wildwood, New Jersey in February. We host the West Penn duels in Western PA here actually at the school. This is our third year for holding it, and that's going to be a pretty good competitive. It's 24 teams. From 6 different states. Right now, we have 22 in already with 2 months to go to it, but we have 6 different states coming in. Indiana, New Jersey, Georgia are all coming in for that. We also went to Ragin' Raisins, a club that we're friends with. They ran the duels up in Erie I was in June. We went to Bucknell University for a nice set of duels out there in July. So we look for being able to give kids dual opportunities. It's giving them exposure to different kids, higher level, continuing to raise their bar. There's so much good competition around this area. Lots of reputable clubs that bring tough competition every time. So being able to stay competitive, not getting caught up in the here and now with the kids, but being able to stretch them. But no, they're going to face good competition. You can name tough competition across the board that has come out of this neck of the woods. And I know that there's a lot of tough wrestling states out there. Out of the last Olympics, 2 Olympic competitors was Jake Herbert and Coleman Scott. Jake Herbert's school district borders our school district. I coached against him when he was in high school. Coleman's is about we're still friends. He comes in and runs clinics. I've known Jake since he was in 7th grade. I knew Jake. And Coleman Scott from Waynesburg, about an hour and a half south from where I'm located. So it's very competitive, but we do a lot of dual events to give kids extra opportunities to get out and compete.
You and Mike obviously enjoy what you do. It is a business, and I get that. You have a schedule that you keep. Apparently, it's friendly for parents, and that's important. Friendly schedules makes it easy for parents to have the kids participate, and participation continues to climb. What's the load look like as far as the team goes now? Is there 40 kids in the room, 30 kids in the room?
With this being October 1st, we've been on a regular basis. Both locations have had a solid, steady 30 kids per room. Wow. at each place, and that's now in the still the lighter time of the season of the year. And then by the time we get to early to middle of November, I mean, I'll be into the 40s, into the 40s. Mike easily, he'll have nights down in Etna, down in Pittsburgh, that'll hit 65, 75 kids on any given night. So we've texted each other at the end of a tough night, with being busy, and it's mid-November, and I'll say I had 38, and he's like, I think I had 66 or something. We'll realize, and then you get all the way to February, March when we're getting close to the States, and on any given night, we'll have 100, 110 kids.
Wow.
Combined between the two of us.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the success. One of the things we like to do is highlight programs and clubs that are doing good things. The Max Lamb story, of course, not only touched our hearts, but it opened our eyes to OMP. And folks, again, the website, ompwrestling.com. It's an opportunity for you to get in on the ground floor of a fairly young club, but one that's very active and very aggressive. Surely they're teaching these kids the best wrestling possible, and it's proving out in the performance and in the results. Joe, anything you'd like to add before I cut you loose today?
I just like to thank you for having me on. And Max, he's a well-deserving kid, and it's a pleasure, privilege to have him. With given the opportunity to work with him, with such a great kid. But just something positive for the sport to be able to, continue to inspire people, continue to give people feel-good stories. It was a great opportunity to be able to have it. But I appreciate you for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure, my friend. I appreciate it, and I'll look forward to staying in contact with you as you and Mike continue to grow the club, and the kids obviously are the beneficiaries of all this good work. Good work indeed. Joe Montalbano has been our guest. Again, it's OMP. One more period, ompwrestling.com online. That's the best place to go for initial contact and information. Pricing is there. The schedules are there as well. Monday's closed, though, right? Right now?
Mondays and Wednesdays, Mike is open. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm open. And then our more full-time schedule now will kick in November, where we start. He'll be open every night. I'm open 3 out of the 4 nights at this point. So
that means an additional 40 hours a week for you, Coach.
Yeah. Why not?
Thanks for the time today, Joe. My best to your team, the staff of volunteers and coaches and everybody that participates. But we're definitely keeping our attention set on you guys to see what you're able to accomplish this year. Good job out of you. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you.
He's Joe Montalbano, OMP Wrestling. I'm Scott Casper from Takedown, and thanks for watching.